So here's the thing about game previews. They are much more fun when things are going your way. And up until last week in Jacksonville, where we got our ass handed to us, no question about it, things were going the Colts' way. I mean, at least in terms of where our expectation was coming into the season, I thought we were overachieving on a number of different fronts. If you told any Colts fan that going into last week we were going to be 3-2 with a chance to take first place in the division with a win against Jacksonville, I think a lot of people would have said that's really unnecessarily optimistic. But then again, that's where we were. And that's the beauty of the NFL, right? It has a funny way of telling you that you don't know exactly everything you think you know, even when it seems obvious and clearly in front of your face. Now, with that loss to Jacksonville, with Anthony Richardson now opting to get the season-ending surgery, right? We already knew he was going to miss time, but to know he's not going to be here for the entirety of the season, and Grover Stewart getting a 6-game suspension for those PEDs, what a gut punch it was this week for Colts fans. And listen, by the way, I am not at all mad at Grover Stewart, assuming, of course, that he wasn't just blatantly cheating and knowing what was in his system, right? Or rather knew something illegal was in his system. This is how I view it ethically. It is maybe a bit of a diversion from the game preview, but I'll say it. If you show me an athlete that isn't taking performance-enhancing drugs, I'll show you someone that's not a professional athlete, okay? I don't think there is anything ethically wrong at all for taking things that try to enhance your performance. Why would you take something that tried to hinder your performance, right? I just think that term is a little weird altogether, but I do get the idea, like, you don't want people cheating and taking whatever, right? But, I just find the term weird, but that's, a separate discussion entirely, right? At the end of the day, despite all of those negatives coming into this week and the fact that it feels like we're kind of at a crossroads in the season where this game against the Browns, right, there's something to be said about momentum. And if we lose this game against the Browns, it is going to feel like the season might start to slip away from us a little bit, at least how it appears in front of our face. Make no mistake, right now we are 3-3, and despite the fact we lost twice to the Jaguars, again, I'm not suggesting we're going to win the division. My point is that even having lost twice to the Jaguars, mathematically, with a win this week, we're right there, right? I mean, 4-3 is a good spot to be. Of course, we have to win the game, but 3-3, mathematically, you're still alive. Listen, we have to stick with this thing as Colts fans and as an organization, if for nothing else than to shift the culture that has seemed to deteriorate around this place for the past few years. We got to win as many games as humanly possible. This ain't about the draft pick to me, okay? The NFL is not like the NBA. You don't need to have a top 5 pick to get a good player that projects to be successful in the league. I mean, people draft good talent all over the draft. As long as you have your first round pick, you're fine by me, particularly when you've already landed the quarterback. Now, the only thing about Richardson we're worried about now is the injury situation, the shoulder. Obviously, with what we've seen out of Andrew Luck, of all the things, a shoulder is not what we want to see. But, other than the injury, we're very much on board with Richardson. I think collectively, you still have a couple people who are lagging behind, and they get to have their season to trash the quarterback of their football team, whatever sick kick they get out of that. We have our quarterback. We need to win as many games as possible, move this team forward, and establish a culture so that this guy is coming back in to a situation that is still healthy from a locker room perspective and from a morale perspective, right? That's what we're aiming to do now. And what we're going to talk about today, of course, is the Browns preview. I mean, that's the whole point, right? It is Saturday, and the game is tomorrow. There's really not much else to talk about. So I just want to go through what I view as some of the important talking points going into this game. They might be keys to victory. They might not be. I don't have it organized in that way, right? But we're going to just talk about how I'm viewing the game, just my thoughts. Listen, I don't pride myself on being the news or bringing you new information. I don't really say much that other people don't say in terms of teaching you something about the Indianapolis Colts. What I bring that I think is a little different is myself, right? All I can do is be myself and give you the best product possible, and that's what we're going to do. And of course, we'll do the parlay of the week as well, which is absolutely not been going well at all. So, we'll go through that. But as I say, I'm not telling you to do the parlay. If you're following me for money, for bets, stop doing it maybe, because it's not working out. In fact, you should bet the opposite of what I bet, and maybe you'll do okay, right? But without further ado, let's get into this Browns preview. But before we do, as always, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Justin. This right here is the Ride in the Bench Colts cast. As always, if you're enjoying it, or perhaps maybe later on in the video, if you stick around, you're enjoying it, go ahead, shoot it a like. It's going to help me get out to as many Colts fans as humanly possible. We're closing in on 1,700 subscribers over here. I'm trying to get to 2,000 as soon as humanly possible, and then the next goal will be 3,000. We're just going to keep going up by 1,000, but it starts with your like and your subscription right now, particularly if you're a returning listener. Hopefully today is the day you subscribe, but most importantly, let's just enjoy what we're doing here today. Enjoy the video, enjoy the discussion, and that would be the housekeeping, so let's get into it, right? This Cleveland Browns team, I want to start with the Browns, okay? Because the Colts, well, we talk about the Colts all the time. The point of the game preview is to talk about the Colts, as they compare to the other teams. So the Browns last week, without Deshaun Watson, were able to beat the undefeated San Francisco 49ers. And the thing about the Niners, as compared to the Colts, is that even though, and don't get it twisted, the Colts are nowhere near on their best day, they're not as good as the 49ers. From a personnel perspective, I think coaching, I think if you put Steichen on the Niners, the results would be similar. But the Niners are obviously better than the Colts. That's not my point. But their formula to winning football games, the 49ers and the Colts, is very, very similar, right? You want to run the ball, control the clock, and then you want to play good defense. Those are what both of those teams are trying to do to win football games. Of course, the Niners do it better for a number of different reasons. But what I'm saying is that you have a Browns team that was able to knock off the 49ers, who are a better version of the Colts than the Colts are. Does that make sense? So that is something to be worried about. And the thing that is weird about the NFL is that things change so much week to week. Any given Sunday is a very, very real thing. So while I don't feel optimistic about a Colts win this week, I'm not going to write them off entirely. Ultimately, they're going to be in Lucas Oil Stadium after a loss that really was an absolute backbreaker for this team. And the resilience they've shown all year is something that we could at least get behind for the time being. We'll see how the season progresses. But as it stands today, for today's discussion, I'm still with them right there. And the 49ers last week were 3 of 12 on third down and were able to still pull off a loss. It still took a Jake Moody missed field goal to lose that game. So it's not like the Browns went in there and handled them, right? And if we're going to touch on the injury report real quick, as we normally do, the Colts, other than the obvious with Anthony Richardson and Grover Stewart, when you talk about the rest of the guys on the roster, the Colts have been able to stay healthy for the most part. I mean, right now we're looking at Kylan Granson and Braden Smith both being out. Obviously, we know what Braden Smith brings to the table. Blake Freeland has been working in quite nicely. The thing that worries me a little bit is that you have Deshaun Watson returning for the Cleveland Browns. And here's my thing. When I look at this game, the way I see it, we have a few keys to victory right here, right? Number one, we can't let this turn into a battle of the quarterbacks. It just cannot be that way. Gardner Minshew, as much as I like him, and by the way, that isn't just true. It's not like if we replaced Gardner Minshew with Kellen Mond or Sam Ehlinger that would be any different, okay? At the end of the day, we're going to have to do this thing the way we're meant to do this thing, which is run the ball and play good defense. We can't let this turn into a shootout. We're not going to win it that way, okay? Lucky for us, I don't think it'll be one. And now number two, which in fact, let me switch them because it really, the more the discussion point is one of them. Number two, we're going to say take the points, right? When you have the opportunity to get points in a game like this with two good defenses and two offenses that ultimately you're just not sure exactly who's going to show up, take the points when you could get them, okay? The over-under for this game is 40.5, which means 21-17 would blow that thing out, right? Nope, I'm wrong. Can't do math. Point being is that's a pretty low over-under, okay? That just is what it is. This is a game I view being like a 20-17 type of game. Can't afford to not have 3 points when you could get them. They matter more in this game than they would against the Jaguars because you know the Jaguars are capable of dropping 30-plus on you on any given day. The Browns, so it seems, when Deshaun Watson, even when he was on the field before the injury, knocked that squad. And number three, and most importantly, and this is really the most important part of the video, at what point is it time for us to really bring JT into this? Now, we know Zach Moss has been spectacular, right? But you're kind of just waiting for Jonathan Taylor to take over a game. And at the end of the day, you look back to the 2021 season, which was the year with Carson Wentz. I lose track of time so quickly. Ever since COVID, right? That's just how it goes. The year with Carson Wentz, we were able to win games where Jonathan Taylor, or rather where Carson Wentz, threw the ball less than 25 times, and we were winning those games with relative, not consistency, but we were able to win games, is my point. And you're just kind of waiting for Jonathan Taylor to get going. And last week, one of the big talking points for the Colts after the game, Shane Steichen specifically, other people as well, but he's the one that comes to mind, was that the Jaguars were able to just get the Colts away from the run early. They just came in committed to stopping the run. And that Jaguars defense was able to do the same thing again on Thursday. That Jaguars defense is a good defense. Make no mistake about it. I feel like the Jaguars, other than the years with Jalen Ramsey and actually pretty sure Gus Bradley as the head coach at the time, they were really have not been known for great defenses throughout the years. And it almost makes you sleep on their defense a little bit. The Jaguars defense is averaging 3.6 yards per carry against them. And you look at the Browns, they're at 3.5 yards per carry. So in theory, this Browns run defense is just as good as that Jaguars run defense, if not better. So given what we were able to put on the field last year and how we got away from the run, there's reason to be worried. But when you have Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss, you got to go in and do it. Now, as I bring up the Browns and the Jaguars yards per carry, keep in mind that the Titans are still, even after we ran the ball all over them, only averaging 3.6 yards per game against them, and 3.6 yards per carry, against them on the defensive side of the football. And we were able to run it on them. And you know why? It's because we viewed it and said, hey, we're going to establish the run. We're going to force it. At the end of the day, if you're the Colts and your formula to winning is running the ball and playing defense, you got to live and die by that, if you ask me. And I don't think that the Colts couldn't run the ball on the Browns with Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss, with Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, Will Fries playing the way he is. All these guys in there, run blocking the way we've been run blocking this year when we've committed to it. I'm going to take my chances that way. It's better than Gardner Minshew, right? Going out and dropping back and throwing 50 plus times. Keep in mind, the Browns pass defense, all the talk about the run defense, listen to this. The Browns are only allowing 51.9% completion percentage against their defense. Not a numbers guy. I feel like I stumble up when I'm talking about numbers. So much more of an eye test guy, but sometimes to crystallize the point, you have to bring the numbers into it, right? Just to bring into perspective how good the Browns defense is and why it's so important for the Colts to run, right? 51.9% completion percentage against this defense. The second lowest in football would be the Rams at 56.9%. Yards per attempt, 4.6 yards per attempt. Only the Ravens are better than that with 4.5. Every other team in the league has at least 5 or more yards per attempt against them. Point being is one can make a strong argument that the Browns' pass defense is the best in football. You can make that argument. Are they? I don't know. But people might say, based off the numbers, that they are. And when you're versing the best pass defense in football with Gardner Minshew at quarterback, and you have to choose between Minshew winning it for you or that running game winning it for you, there's no question you have to commit to the run. And this is a test for Shane Steichen. We've seen this type of overthinking and this type of thing with Frank Reich over the years where he kind of just, I don't even know what the word would be. He just got away from himself. He just had games where things were questionable. Shane Steichen, if he's different than Frank Reich, is going to come in this week and he's going to run the ball early and often, and he's not going to let the Browns stop him from doing so. At the end of the day, I think you have to trust your defense. If it means that you're in 2nd and 9 and run it again and get yourself into a 3rd and 5, let's say, I'm okay with that. I would rather the Colts lose this game trying to run the football than to lose it by getting away from the run, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So that's kind of my thoughts on this Browns game in a nutshell. I don't think that the Colts are going to win this game. It's hard for me to imagine that with everything that went against us this week and the return of Deshaun Watson, albeit the fact that he's certainly not the guy he was in Houston, hard for me to see the Colts winning this game just because I view, how could I put it? They have less ways to win than the Browns do. Like, I just view more scenarios where the Browns win. So for me, what I'm looking at is, hey, we're ramping up JT's usage, and are we going to commit to running the football? We have to be who we are. It's run the football, play defense, and let Gardner Minshew get easy completions Part of that comes by establishing the run game and making the defense guess. Gardner Minshew's not Mahomes. You know what I'm saying? We all know this, but that's neither here nor there. So with that, that's the game preview. To be honest, not to voice my insecurities, I don't feel like that was a particularly great preview of this game, but so much of this week is less about the preview and more just about me expressing my frustration over the fact that the Colts got away from the run. That's what we have to do this week to even have a shot. So parlay of the week for you, if you've been waiting for it, this is what it is. I don't like any, I don't want to touch this game at all. I'm only doing it for you guys. So take this as you may. If Jonathan Taylor, you need him to run for 25 plus yards in this game, Minshew to throw 1 touchdown, Pittman to have 25 plus receiving yards, and the total points in this game to finish under 47.5, which means 27-20, which I think is way safe. I don't think this game gets anywhere near that. 27-20 in play. Those three right there are, or those 4 legs right there are plus 184, 30% profit boost, plus 239. Don't use that parlay yourself, please, because I keep losing them every week, and I certainly don't want you to lose money off of advice that I'm not giving you, but instead I'm just sharing my parlay with you, right? So that's it. Next time you see this mug will either be tomorrow night or Monday morning, depending on how long it takes me to, put together my thoughts on the game. That is kind of variable by the week, but I will have the post-game reaction as per usual, and then we'll be on with our merry way. Colts tomorrow versus the Browns at Lucas Oil Stadium, 1 p.m. Do not miss that game. The Colts season is at a crossroads, and this week right here is going to go a long way as to figuring out which direction this thing is going to go. So until next time, my name is Justin. This right here was the Ride the Bench podcast, Colts Cast. Go Colts.